All right, so today we're diving into the world of Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street,
Oh,
a
yeah.
name that I think pretty much everyone has at least heard of.
Everyone knows the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, so we're going through his memoir
Yes.
to kind of see what it was like back then and what we can learn from it.
It's a wild ride.
It really is.
And you get to see Wall Street from the perspective of someone who was...
Right in the thick of it.
Yeah, right in the middle of it all.
So he starts his brokerage firm, Stratton Oakmont,
Yep.
from basically nothing,
Right. From the ground up.
from the ground up, and he uses some pretty aggressive tactics to build it into this powerhouse.
Yeah, he wasn't really playing by the rules, let's just say that.
Yeah, definitely not ethical.
No, not really.
So one of his main things was these high-pressure sales tactics,
Right.
where they were just targeting these inexperienced investors and really pushing them.
They were relentless.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine these young guys hungry for success.
Yeah.
And they're trained to just sell no matter what.
And then there's the pump and dump scheme, which sounds kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's a bit of a wild one.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Basically, what they do is they artificially inflate the price of a stock.
Oh, so it's not actually worth that much.
No, they spread all this misleading information, creating a buzz.
So it's all hype.
Exactly, pure hype. They get people to buy, driving the price way up.
And then
And then when the price is high enough, they dump their own shares.
making a killing.
Yeah, huge profits.
But what happens to the people who bought the stock?
Well, the price plummets.
Oh, so they lose a ton of money.
Yeah, it's basically market manipulation.
That sounds illegal.
It is very illegal.
So how did he get away with this for so long?
Well, Belfort, he was incredibly charismatic.
Like a cult leader almost.
Kind of, yeah. He had this way of motivating people,
Yeah.
creating this intense loyalty among his brokers. They were all in.
All drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, they were drawn to the money, the parties, the whole lifestyle.
It was like a fantasy world.
But it was built on deception.
And ultimately it all came crashing down.
It did. The party couldn't last forever.
So what was it like when the FBI started closing in?
Oh, that's when things got really interesting.
What happened?
Well, you have to understand Belfort's mindset.
Okay.
He built this empire on shaky ground.
And now it's all falling apart.
Exactly. He's facing the consequences.
So what does he do?
First, he thinks about running.
Like fleeing the country.
Yeah, disappearing with all the money, starting a new life somewhere else.
That's pretty tempting.
It is. But in the end, he decides to cooperate with the authorities.
Really?
Yeah, he cuts a deal.
To save himself.
Well, to reduce his sentence anyway.
So he gives up his friends and colleagues.
Yeah, he spills the beans on the whole operation.
Wow, what a betrayal.
It's a complex situation,
Yeah, I bet.
but it's all there in the memoir. All the motivations, the guilt, the self-preservation.
So what was the final outcome?
Well, he's convicted of securities fraud and money laundering.
No surprise there.
But he only serves 22 months in prison. That's all thanks to his cooperation.
Seems a bit light considering everything.
A lot of people think so.
So what happens after prison?
Oh, that's when things take another turn.
Let me guess, he doesn't just fade into obscurity.
Nope, he reinvents himself.
How so?
He becomes a motivational speaker.
Seriously?
Yeah, he sells his story as a cautionary tale.
The Wolf of Wall Street turned motivational guru.
You got it.
That's quite a change.
It is, and it's generated a lot of controversy.
I can imagine.
Some see him as a reformed man trying to make amends.
And others.
Think he's just an opportunist still profiting from his past.
It's hard to say for sure.
It is, but the message he's pushing is interesting.
What's that?
He talks about the dangers of greed, the emptiness of material wealth.
Sounds like he's learned something.
Maybe he has. He talks about ethical behavior, the consequences of bad choices.
So is he walking the walk now?
That's the big question.
It is?
His memoir talks about his attempts to make things right.
Like what?
He talks about reconnecting with his kids, being a better father.
But is it genuine?
It's hard to know.
So ultimately, it's up to each person to decide if they believe him.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the bigger picture here.
Okay.
What does Belfort's story tell us about Wall Street?
Well, he operated in a time of deregulation.
When anything went.
Pretty much, yeah. Risk-taking was rampant. Ethical boundaries were blurred.
It was the Wild West of finance.
You could say that, and Belfort's story exposes the dark side of that era.
The greed, the pursuit of profit at any cost.
It's a reminder that systems that prioritize profit over people can be very dangerous.
They create opportunities for exploitation for people like Belfort to thrive.
And while things have tightened up since then,
The allure of wealth and power is still there.
it is, and Belfort's story serves as a cautionary tale.
A reminder that the pursuit of success can lead us down a dark path.
if we're not careful.
So what are some takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to be aware of the seductive nature of greed.
It can blind us to the consequences,
Exactly, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
especially when it comes to your money.
Right. Do your research, get a second opinion, trust your gut.
And remember that financial crimes have real victims.
They do, they can devastate lives.
Belfort's story is a stark reminder of that.
It is.
So let's take a break here,
Okay.
and we'll come back and delve a little deeper into this world.
Sounds good. It's like he's standing on the edge of this cliff, right?
Yeah, everything's falling apart.
And he has to make a choice.
Run or face the music.
And running is tempting. He even starts planning it out.
I can imagine picturing himself on some tropical island,
Living the high life out of reach of the law.
but that's not what happens.
No, in the end, he decides to cooperate.
Wow.
Yeah, he makes a deal with the FBI.
To give them information.
Exactly. He tells them everything about Stratton Oakmont, about his colleagues, everything.
Yeah. In exchange
A
for...
reduced sentence.
So he basically throws everyone under the bus.
Well, yeah, but it's not that simple.
I mean, it kind of is, right?
There's more to it.
What do you mean?
His memoir really dives into his mindset at the time.
Okay.
It's not just about saving himself.
There's guilt, too.
There is. He knows he's hurt a lot of people.
So what happens next?
He's convicted, of course.
Securities fraud, money laundering,
All of it.
and he goes to prison?
He does, but only for 22 months.
22 months for all that.
That's the deal he made.
Seems pretty light.
Yeah, a lot of people felt that way.
They probably lost a lot more than 22 months of their lives,
Exactly. It raises questions about justice, about whether the punishment fits the crime.
especially for white-collar crimes.
Yeah, it's a whole other conversation.
But back to Belfort. What happens after he gets out?
Well, he doesn't exactly lay low.
What does he do?
He reinvents himself, a motivational speaker.
Are you serious?
Dead serious. He goes around telling his story.
The Wolf of Wall Street as a self-help guru.
Pretty much.
That's wild.
It is, and it's caused a lot of controversy.
I can imagine some people probably loved it.
They did. They saw him as a reformed man.
Someone who learned from his mistakes.
Exactly. A redemption story.
And others.
Thought he was just cashing in on his infamy.
Still making a profit.
Yeah, using his past to sell himself.
It's hard to know what to believe.
It is. His memoir tries to paint a certain picture.
Of a changed man.
Yeah, he talks about the dangers of greed, the emptiness of chasing wealth.
Trying to sound like he gets it now.
Right, but is it genuine?
I guess that's up to each person to decide.
Exactly. We
Fair.
can read the memoir, we can listen to his speeches.
But we weren't there.
No, we can't truly know what's in his heart.
So let's zoom out a bit.
Okay.
What does Belfort's story tell us about Wall Street in general?
Well, he came up in a very specific time.
The 80s and 90s.
Oh, yeah. Belfort really exposes that.
The dark side of Wall Street.
The pursuit of profit above all else.
It's a reminder that these systems can be really messed up.
When they prioritize money over people,
It creates opportunities for people like Belfort to exploit others.
and even though things have changed since then,
Human nature hasn't.
right, the temptation is still there.
The allure of wealth and power.
It's a story that can teach us a lot.
About ourselves. About the world we live in.
And about the systems we create.
So what are some practical takeaways for our listeners?
Well, one thing is to be wary of anyone promising easy money.
Those get-rich-quick schemes.
Yeah, if it sounds too good to be true.
It probably is.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to do your research.
And remember that these crimes have real victims.
People lose their life savings, their homes, their dreams.
Belfort's story is a reminder of that.
The human cost of greed.
So how do we prevent this from happening again?
Well, we need stronger regulations, more transparency.
And ethical leadership.
Yes, we need systems that protect people.
That make it harder to exploit others.
It's about accountability.
About making sure that people are held responsible for their actions.
And about creating a culture where ethics matter.
Where greed isn't the only driving force.
Exactly. It's a big challenge.
But it's one we need to face.
If we want to create a better world,
A world where stories like Belfort's.
are less likely to happen.
So let's move on to the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
where we'll explore some of the broader implications of Belfort's story.
And what we can all learn from it.
Stay with us. Yeah. It's easy to focus on the crazy parties, the money.
The whole lifestyle.
But we have to remember, the people who got hurt,
Absolutely. There are real victims.
people who lost everything.
Their savings, their homes.
It's more than just money, though, right?
No, it's not. It's the emotional impact, too.
The feeling of betrayal, The loss of trust.
Yeah, it can really shake your faith in the system.
Like the game is rigged.
Exactly.
So what can we do to protect ourselves?
I think education is key.
Learning about these scams.
Yeah, the more you know, the better you can spot the red flags.
So do your research,
Absolutely. Don't just trust anyone with your money.
especially if they promise you the moon.
Right. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Lots of questions.
And if something feels off,
Trust your gut.
but what about on a bigger scale?
You mean preventing these things from happening in the first place?
Yeah.
Well, we need better regulations, more transparency.
And ethical leaders,
Absolutely. We need systems that protect people.
not just profit.
Right, systems that make it harder to exploit others.
So it's about accountability
Holding people responsible for their actions.
and creating a culture where ethics matter.
Where greed isn't the only motivator.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Jordan Belfort,
The Wolf of Wall Street.
what's the one thing you hope people take away from all this?
I think it's the importance of balance.
Between ambition and integrity,
Exactly. You can strive for success.
but not at the expense of others.
Right. It's about finding that ethical path,
And remembering that our choices have consequences.
both for ourselves and for the world around us.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride.
It was my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there,
Keep learning
keep questioning.
and keep striving for a better world.
Until next time.